That's hard to say. I grew up out in the country, and out of Van Alstyne, about 5 miles, in a little rural area. And anyhow, my dad and mother, they farmed a little farm there, and we started school, little schoolhouse there. One teacher teaching. I don't know how many grades we had at that particular time, but there's one teacher, and that's where Helen, where a girl threw a brick and hit her in the back, and crippled her for life, and so that's part of it. And I remember this lady teacher. She was something. She had to rule a whole school, just one teacher, one room school. And I remember she got on one of the boys, and anyhow, she said, "I'm gonna whoop you. You bring me a switch." Well, he brought a great big long, about a 6-foot long switch, stick really, and she went around the schoolroom, and she was hitting him, and I remember I had to duck in order to keep from being hit myself with that stick and everything. And so anyhow, that was a terrible situation and everything. And of course, I had a twin, and what he couldn't think of, I did. And I remember one time, in fact, Earl brought it up here the other day. I don't know how. He heard it from somebody because he wasn't even born. But anyhow, I got the idea that, like to see fires and things. So I talked Wilfred into going up to our neighbor's house and borrowing some matches. So here we go up there. We go up there to borrow matches. I told the lady that my mother wanted to borrow some matches. And so anyhow, she gave us some matches, and she watched us. My idea was to go back down to the barn, and we was going to start a fire. We, just want what kids, you think about. You want to start a fire. You like fire. So anyhow, she watched us and seen it. We went to the barn. So she went down there and told my mother, and they come down there and got us. And boy, it's a good thing that if we'd ever visited, they had bales of hay. And if we'd ever got that fire started, well, we'd have been gone. We wouldn't have been here today. So, but anyhow, they caught us, and anyhow, she took care of us. I don't know, did she give us a spanking? I'm sure, but I forgot what it was. And anyhow, we lived there for a few years. Then we moved about 2 or 3 miles closer to Cannon, little community, and at that point, we started a little one. Well, they had about 3 rooms. The school went through the 7th grade, I believe, and so we started school there. And I forgot what grade I was in, and for about a couple of years, then we moved to Cannon itself. Moved to Cannon, and we completed the class school there, and I think. We had to go into Van Alstyne then for high school, and I think that was high school started at 8th grade, I believe. Yeah, 8th grade, I believe then. So anyhow, we went to Van Alstyne for school, and anyhow, me and Wilfred, we participated in sports some, and we would stay over and participate in sports. And anyhow, they didn't have buses. You was on your own. If you participated in sports after school, you had to get your own way home. So many times I had to walk from Van Alstyne to Cannon, 6 miles to get home, and that was the only way that we could participate or anything. And And of course, my dad never did own a car. He never owned a car. When the family went to town, we went in mules and wagons. That's how we traveled to and from town until Leslie, he got old enough. He bought a Model T Ford from somebody, and so we drove it around. But that was getting close to the time well, about 2 years before I graduated from high school. Probably $10 or $15, something like that. I don't know. Probably practically nothing there, because I don't even know where he had the money.
Wow.
Well, of course, we lived on a farm, and of course, my dad, we had to do the farm work. We had to chop cotton and hoe, get the weeds out, chop the corn, and that's what we done. And we had any spare time, well, there's woods within a mile of our house, and we'd take slingshots and go hunting. And I think we finally got a 22, and we'd go in the woods and just play around and see about killing animals or something, just to get away and just have something to do and everything. So that's what we done in our spare time. Of course, like I say, we had a farm, and so we had to do the farm work and everything. Had to help my dad, and we, of course, lived on the farm all the time until I graduated from high school. And when I graduated from high school, well, I went to Sherman and got me a job. But Darrell was talking the other day. He said something about he never had electricity. Well, I'm going to have to correct him, because we did, I think in the late 30s, well, REA come through bringing electricity, and I remember they set a pole or two and run it up to our house, and a friend dropped a light in one or two rooms, so we had a light bulb coming down from the ceiling. And before that, all we had was just regular kerosene lamps. And we finally got a Coleman, some kind of Coleman lantern thing, and so we had much better light with that. But anyhow, well, I'll tell you, my mother, I don't think anyone could have had a better mother.
We loved her.
Yeah. Well, you can imagine, there's 6 of us boys. Well, Darrell come along later in life, but 6 of us boys, and anyhow, Helen, she went, well, I think she went to school some, but anyhow, she would get up, and we didn't have, at that time, just a wood burning cook stove. Well, she'd get up of a morning and light the fire, and she'd cook breakfast and everything for us, and then we'd eat. She'd get us off to school and everything, and she'd fix our lunch for us and everything. And I remember we killed hogs, and we had pork and all that. We didn't have any beef, but we had pork. And so I remember my mother, she'd fix us either sausage or ham and biscuit, whatever, put in our lunch to take to school. And of course we had that all the time. I was tired of it. I remember going to school, and some of those city boys, they see us with a sausage and ham or something like that, and they had a bologna sandwich. And I'd swap that biscuit and sausage. So I thought about how crazy crazy those boys, city boys were here, they'd swap me a bologna sandwich for an old biscuit and sausage. It was something. But I didn't realize at the time that they didn't have such stuff. That was the greatest thing for them to have. So anyhow, I'd swap with them some. Anyhow, I worked a little while in Sherman at a grocery store. And my father-in-law to be, they had kid folks right there in Cannon, and they'd come from Fort Worth, and he worked for Texas Electric Service Company, and they would come down there, and so we was right there by them friends, and we all got together, and that's where I met Dorothy. And so anyhow, they would come in, and we would go up to their grandmother's, and they lived in Tom Bean, and we'd go up there and have lunch with them, and they was around, come in, well, once or twice a year, and so anyhow he saw that I kind of cared for Dorothy and everything, and he asked me one time, said, would you like to work with the company? I said, well, it'd tickle me to death. And so anyhow, he said, well, you come to Fort Worth and I'll take you to see the superintendent and get you a job. Well, I went down there, and on a Sunday, he took me over to his house. It's on North Main, in North Side, in North Side, about close to the church where we go to church, supposed to go to church, and we can't push down. But he lived there. He took me over to his house on a Sunday. We talked to him, and he said, well, can you come to my office Monday morning? And I said, I sure can. So I went down there. Of course, I was hired. They was hiring at that time. And in I think it's about October, I was going to be drafted, and they sent me to Dallas to take a physical and everything. And so went over there, and of course I passed. But I had the option. I could either go in the Navy or the Air Force, and or be drafted. Well, my father-in-law and them, they lived right out there, close to the air base, Carswell Air Base, and so I went out there and talked to them and signed up for the Air Force for the duration plus 6 months. Okay, I signed up, and they sent me out Camp Walters out at Mineral Wells to get my clothes, I think, and back to Carswell Air Base. The base was brand new at that time, 1942. They were just building it. And they said on my resume that I worked for Texas Electric. They said, okay, you're an electrician. They sent me to post engineers, working with civilians as an electrician to help wire the base. New barracks, installing barracks and everything. So anyhow, they sent me down there, and I didn't know how to put 2 wires together, didn't know anything about it, but they made an electrician out of me. They sent me to school, and I learned about doing electrical work, and so I helped really with electrician do the wiring and everything on the barracks, hospitals, and all that stuff while I was there. I was there for about 11 months, and they got everything pretty well built. They didn't need me anymore, and so they sent me and one other soldier down there as an electrician. So anyhow, they said they didn't need me anymore in post engineers, so sent me back up there, and I just loafed around for a while. They didn't know what to do with me, so they said, okay, we'll send you to aviation engineers. And that's the same thing to the Air Force is the Seabees is to the Navy. And so anyhow, they sent me to Spokane, Washington, joined up with a group, and aviation engineer group. We trained, and then they got us ready to go overseas. and they shipped us out to California. We stayed out there for a short time, and then it was time for us to load everything up and go overseas. So anyhow, they sent us over to get on the ship, and get on the ship, you know, they want everybody to be busy, want, you know, everybody to have something to do, stay busy. They put me as a guard in a little hallway, looking, just standing there with a rifle, you know, like I was important, and just standing there. Well, that was while they was loading everybody and getting everybody ready to leave out. And so that boat was sitting there rocking back and forth, and I was looking at that wall, and I can't take motion, and I got sick. And I was sick. We was right there close to the bridge in California, the
Golden Gate Bridge?
Stone,
The Golden Gate?
Golden Gate Bridge.
Wow.
Golden Gate
Okay.
Bridge. Anyhow, anyhow, before we ever, by the time we left out, before I ever got to the Golden Gate Bridge, I was so sick I had to go to bed, and I stayed that away for about 7 days. I was so sick I wished I could have died. But anyhow, I had to stay in bed, couldn't eat anything for a long time, and finally some of the guys would bring me an apple or crackers or something, and I'd munch on them, and I finally got over it, and when I got over it, well, of course, it took us 11 days. We were headed for New Guinea. And so anyhow, I remember one time we stopped on the way, pulled into a big bay, and the cosmetology airplanes, they come in, made a raid on us, and they come in and dropped a bomb just a short distance from our ship. I don't think it hit any of them, but anyhow, some of them shot the plane down, and then anyhow we went on to New Guinea, and we got to New Guinea, a place named Hollandia, New Guinea, and we were about 10 miles back in the jungle. That's where we set up base, and our job was to take care of roads, runways, and things like that. They had a little runway down there that the planes, they'd bring some planes in there at that time, in the daytime. It was marshy land, and they couldn't build a runway as such, a concrete runway or anything. They had steel grading on this runway. It was about 4 foot wide, about 9 feet long, the grading. It was hooked together, and anyhow, the planes would come in during the day, and I don't remember what all, just bringing food and everything, because the war had just been over there. The fighting was over. They moved on out, moved on up to some other islands. But anyhow, the planes would come in there in daytime and land. We'd go out there at night and we'd have to fix all that metal and put it all back together before the planes hit it and broke it up. So that was our job, is putting those things back together with some other things that we had to do, help building roads and runways. And so anyhow, we were down there for about 8 months, and then we left out and got on a small boat with all of our heavy equipment and everything, and we moved up to a little island off Okinawa, Aishima. You've probably never heard of such a thing as the Bitty Islands, but anyhow, that's where we went. And I remember at the time, the war had ended. They just cleared that island, and anyhow, I remember plane coming in before we got off the ship and everything, bombing and everything. It missed us, but we went on inland to where we was going to set up our base and everything, and the war correspondent, Ernie Powell. He was a war correspondent. He was on the Ishima, and he was killed just a short time before we got there. And he was buried on the Ishima. And anyhow, we passed right by his grave and went and set up base and everything. And anyhow, now they moved his body to Punchbowl in Hawaii. That's where his body is now. But anyhow, our stay there, well, it was a coral island. Coral Island, you know about what coral is, it's rocky looking stuff. Anyhow, we had a coral pit. We'd dig it up and put it on the runways and make it down. It just pack it down just about like cement. And so that's really about what we did there. And I remember we'd have air raid warnings all the time. Jet planes would come in and bomb us, and anyhow, we'd have to get up in the middle of the night and go to foxhole. We had a foxhole, trench about 3 foot wide and about 10 feet long, and we'd have to run and jump in those foxholes, and anyhow, we did have to do that pretty regularly. And there's one guy that he didn't like the idea of getting up at night and going to the foxholes. We all went where we'd be safe. And of course, one night I looked up and air raid, and they dropped a bomb. It was a phosphorus bomb or something. It came down, and we all ducked down the foxhole, and the bomb hit about 100 yards away from us. And anyhow, I think it was that particular time that that bomb hit so close, shattered shrapnel everywhere, and so we were worried about this one guy that never did get up to go to the foxhole or anything. So when it was over, well, we run down there to see, if he was there or anything happened. And when we got down there, they had a large piece of shrapnel come through the tent and right through his cot. He wasn't there. He went in the foxhole that night. Okay, I was on Ishima, this little island of Ishima, and when the war was over, we heard about it, and Okinawa was about 5 or 6 miles away, just big island, a little bit further away. And anyhow, we heard all the gunfire firing and all the sirens and everything going off. We'd heard about the war being close to being over. So anyhow, they had declared that they was going to cease fire. And so we knew it was all over. Well, we stayed on Ishima for a short time. And anyhow, the dignitaries from Japan, they was going to go to see MacArthur. They had 2 planes, and they brought them into a little island there, Ishima, where I was. They brought them in, and our planes escorted them in on our runway, and they landed and pulled up, and we had a big American plane there. It took those dignitaries. I don't know how many dignitaries they had from Japan, but I was right by the side of the runway, right close to the plane where they brought all of them in, put them on an American plane, and sent them over to MacArthur to sign the peace treaty. And they stayed there for about 2 or 3 days. And of course our people had to guard them and watch the planes and everything while they was going to sign the peace treaty. And anyhow, they came back and our planes escorted them out. And so the war was officially over. And then we went over to Okinawa for about 4 or 5 months before. That's where I left before I came home. And the war, the war was over. They just got through doing all the war, everything over there. So that was in December 44. And they took us out. They didn't have a dock. They had to stay way out in the waters. The ship was big. They took us out in small boats to get on the boat. Well, to get on the boat, I had my backpack, my duffel bag, and I think probably I still had my rifle with me and everything. And I had to take all that. I had to climb a rope ladder all the way from that boat up to the where I could get on the big ship. Had to do that in order to, but I was glad to do that to come home. But and I was talking about my sick spell, but once I had that sick spell going over there, the trip in a small LST that we went to Hiroshima on, it never did bother me. And the trip back home never did bother me. We come back through the Aleutian Islands and to Spokane.